Frontier just held the second of 4 live streams where they're showcasing the different changes that's gonna come in the next update. And this time the focus was on the new scenarios and the changes coming to BGS. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with Down to Earth Astronomy. Once again, I am recapping the Frontier livestream, so if you don't want to sit and watch the livestream for a full hour, here is the quick summary. Once again, I'm going to go through it in the same order as the livestream happened, so if you want to go in and dive a little bit deeper into some of it, you can go and find the Frontier livestream, and you can kind of skip ahead until you find the point in the livestream. And again, it is going to be like a talking head video. So let's dive right into it. First, they showed a very quick little teaser, kind of a standalone thing. They're adding national COVAS voice. So the COVAS voice packs are the ship voice that narrates whatever happens when like when you turn stuff modules on or off in your ship, all that stuff that the ship says to you. That voice, we've been able to change that for quite a while. They're now making national packs. So far, it is, I think it was French, Russian, and Spanish. There were a few languages in there, but at least now you're going to be able to get national languages that I would of course expect it to be something they would add upon further on. So just a small side note there. Now the rest of this is all about the scenarios and BGS. Those two things kind of tie together. Now they don't necessarily have to, but they kind of do. And a common theme across all this is voice acting. They are going to focus a lot on voice acting. There's going to be all these new, they call them scenarios, which is going to be like small, like miniature missions basically. They're going to spawn as USSs, which you scan with the new scanning system that they're also launching in this patch. And you could then fly in, and then dependent on the state of the system and the faction controlling the system, different things can happen. So if, let's say you fly into a famine system and you go into a distress signal, well, it might be someone looking for food. It might be a pilot looking for fuel. It might be something completely different. It might be someone looking for medicine if there's an outbreak in the system or something like that. So they're going to try to tie it together. And there are some of them that are very simple, like the one, I'm just looking for food or fuel. So you just give them what they want. They will give you some payout. There's a lot of fun that they said, oh, it's going to be 10 credits payout, but again, it's a hot build, hot numbers. So if you fly into one of these new scenarios, they can vary in difficulty. I think the ones they showed here were just some very simple ones. They showed some more advanced ones later. When you complete that, it will then have an either positive or negative influence on the state in the system, depending on what you do, because you do have a choice in there. You can choose to, often in the cases they show, you can choose to help or not help. So yeah, at least that's nice to give someone something else to do. I think this is something that they have added because there was a lot of people who said because of the new implementation of the dedicated mission server, which removes board hopping from the game, that BGS is going to be really, really difficult because now you only have one board, and if you don't want to do like if you're looking for a very specific type of mission, it will be very difficult to get those missions, especially for factions that maybe don't spawn that many missions in the system. So to try and help the BGS communities, I think that's why they've added these scenarios. That first of all, it's an awesome thing that they've added, I think, but also that it's going to pull it away from the mission board, so you can now actually influence the system just by flying around in that system, running scenarios or doing whatever you want. Now, one of the biggest changes they have made is how states, faction states work. Right now, a state is global. You use those as blocking states to prevent. So, like if factions in one state, let's say it's a war in another state, they can't go into a war in another system because that's a global state. That's all going to change. Not only are you going to be able to have a separate stat per system, so you can be in boom in one system, you can be in war in another, and you can be in expansion in a third. But you're also going to be able to have multiple states. They showed with a faction that had up to 3 states in the same system. And these are divided into categories like security, economy, and stuff like that. So divided them into that. And every state, every faction will now have like a tug of war kind of bar where you can see how well you're doing in the specific area. So how well are you doing security-wise in the system? That can either, if that's very low, you would often have civil unrest, or you would go to war. Or if it's very high, they have this a new state. I think that's gonna reflect. I think it was called. So you can find it as civil liberty. That's gonna reflect that the system is nice and safe and everything's good. Or was that with economy? I can't remember. Anyway, there's new states and there's gonna be these bars, so it's easier to see where your faction are and how you're moving. But this is quite interesting because this is going to mean that the BGS is going to be a lot more complicated than it is right now. It already is complicated. It's going to be more transparent to see what's going on, but it's going to be a lot more complicated to manage it. One of the main difficulties with BGS right now is not really to know what you need to do. The main difficulty was to actually see and figure out what was going on, which is why people often use a ton of external third-party tools to try and get an overview of what's going on. A lot of this is now going to be pulled into the game and you're going to have that information available in-game, which I think is great. I think it's a good addition. Now, it is going to be more difficult, especially for larger factions, because now that there's so much more to manage within the same system, because you can have multiple states, there are multiple parameters you can work on in the same system. That means that I think we're going to see a lot of factions after the 3.3 patch begin to retreat out of systems and just focus on their core systems, because it's going to require a lot more people to manage a large number of systems. So that's going to be interesting, and I really hope if you're interested in all this stuff and want to try it out in the game. Of course, you have to wait for the patch to go live, but this challenge community, we have a player faction called downtoearthastronomy, and if you want to join, just follow the link for Discord, and over there you can get in touch with all the with the planning team, and there will be daily orders posted so you know what to do, where to go in order to help the faction. Because as I said, it takes quite a bit of knowledge and skill to figure out exactly what you need to do, depending on what it is you actually want to do. But hopefully that's going to be a lot more transparent in the coming patch. Another thing that they quickly mentioned was basically just a small side note, is that squadrons, which is also coming in this patch, can associate themselves with a faction. And if you do that, you're going to have like an overview page. They're going to show you all the systems you're in and how the different parameters are in those systems. But the important part here is can, meaning don't have to. So you can have an independent squadron that's not really doing any kind of BGS and it's not affected by it in any way, other than what would naturally happen in the system. But you can also choose to align yourself with a faction and then play it like that. We are probably going to do that, or I know we're going to do that with the squadron that I'm creating. They showed some quick videos of how all these new scenarios they're going to work, and I asked in chat if because they showed how when you complete a scenario, how it is going to show in the info bar what you affected, how you affected the different states, again to try and make BGS a lot more transparent for the individual player, so they can actually see what's going on in the system, and that players actually have a feeling that they are changing the system. I then asked in chat if this is now going to be updated live, or if it's still going to be as it is today with a daily server tick. And they said it's still going to be a daily cumulative server tick, where all the actions done in the last day is going to be added up, and then the server's going to tick one day forward, and then we have one day to kind of, based on that, figure out what we want to do with the next 24 hours. So that's still going to be the same. Now, next up, we have the war stage, but they're going to change a lot. So listen up, because this is going to be quite different from what it is today. War stage today can often be used by factions to give themselves a boost in a system. So what you could do is you could force yourself into a war, and then while you were in the war, you could just farm the conflict zones to boost you even more, so you could get a huge influence boost doing a war. But the way it's going to work now is, first of all, wars is only going to have a small, well, not small, but they're going to have a separate influence pool that you're fighting over. So that means gone are the days where you just boost up during a war. You have a specific amount of influence points that you can get if you win the war. And that's all you can get. They're also going to show, there's going to be a war overview page going to show exactly if there's any assets up for grabs, what assets are up for grabs, what you could potentially win in terms of stations or surface outposts if you win that war. The war is also going to be extended. Right now they have a minimum length of 3 days, and I think it can last up to 5 days if I recall correctly. Maybe even longer. I think maybe it's actually, is that a month? Anyway, they can last for 3 days and then a lot longer. But now they're going to be 7 days. And instead, as it is right now, when you just have to get a certain number of influence difference in the system, then you would win the war. Now you're going to have to fight each day because you collect points every day. The one that wins the day gets a point. So the war is going to last 7 days now, so a full week. And every day, the winning faction that day gains a point, and whoever has the most points after a week will be the winner of the war. Simple as that. When you now drop into a conflict zone, you're going to have like a progress bar that shows, as you kill the ship, you can see this progress bar fills up. And if the team you're fighting for's progress bar fills up first, you won that conflict zone. You can then reset it. I don't know if you have to jump out, jump back in, or what you have to do to reset it. But you could somehow reset it. You could do it again and again and again. And I assume every time you win a conflict zone and fill that up, you gain a point towards winning the daily conference or the daily battle. They said there's no actual like progress bars or tug of war bars showing how the two factions are competing on that separate day. Because they don't want people to be able to say, oh, now we got enough points, now we're just going to leave. You'll have to try and guess that, so it's a little bit, well, there's a little bit more of a challenge in it there, so you don't game the system as much. And I guess it makes sense, because if you were in a war, you wouldn't really know how much the enemy have done maybe before it was too late. So it's kind of a way to make, so you just have to actually fight a war. So again, when a war starts, you have to fight every day for those 7 days to be able to win. Or at least you would have to fight for at least 4 days. If you won the first 4 days, you could slack off the rest 3 days, because then you know you won anyway. So yeah, that's pretty cool. They're also going to add side objectives to the conflict zones now. So you could have, for instance, reporters, like journalists, jump in, either from your own faction or from the enemy faction. And if it's from your own faction, you would have to try and protect them so they don't get killed. And if it's from the enemy faction, well, you could try to kill the enemy reporters so they don't bring back propaganda videos and footage to rally their people. You could also have like the king of the fleet, or that was at least how they described it, some kind of army general who would jump in, and you would then also have to try and swarm around this guy to protect him if he's from your side, or try to take him down if he's from the enemy side. And I would expect this to be a more difficult ship than we would normally see in a conflict zone, more engineered, maybe more hit points, something like that. Again, just a little bit added channels, and of course still capital ships work in a similar way. If a capital ship jumps in, you have to try and win that fight as small side objectives. Again, cool that they're doing more with the conflict zones. I could definitely see this being a ton of fun. So the way we expand from system to system today is, again, you find a system, you drive that system into expansion, and then you can kind of, you can kind of predict from that system where you're going to expand to. Now, it seems like it's going to be a lot more chaotic. What they're doing now is we have a happiness meter across the fact that so all system has a separate happiness meter. You also have, it seems like you have like a global happiness meter, and when your global happiness meter reaches a certain point, you will then expand from the happiest of your systems. If it's still the same as this today, where you would expand to the nearest system where you have room, I don't know, but I would expect that is the case. So, but again, I mean, now there's just another stat that you have to try and balance in the system, which is the happiness. And they mentioned that, oh, so if you want to expand from a specific system, because you want to go to a specific system, you want to know where you're expanding from, so you can calculate where you're expanding to. But if you want a specific system to be the happiest at the time of expansion, you can then either try to boost the happiness of that system or make all your other systems more unhappy. So, well, there's kind of two ways you can do it there. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, give a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, I'll see you guys in space.